Compiled AppleScript decompiled.
Hey, Andy, you have an interesting story about a Mac malware which only actually runs only AppleScripts in run-only mode to complicate actually analysis by the malware researchers. Could you like to elaborate more on this topic?
Certainly. Yeah, this is not a typical cryptocurrency story I've found. And I'll start by saying I'm not going to provide all the details that are available. There's a great post by SentinelOne that has all the details that you could want. It's pretty lengthy. But just to give you a quick overview. So late last year, SentinelOne researchers discovered a malware campaign for what's called the OSAMiner malware. It's a cryptocurrency malware, OSAMiner. OSAMiner, OSAMiner, however you want to pronounce it. It's based off of OSAScript, which is a tool that's on macOS that you can use to run scripts and whatnot. But so this malware, it's cryptocurrency malware. It mines Monero. It does the cryptocurrency things that you would expect it to do. Causes high CPU usage. It tries to kill processes that tend to monitor for cryptocurrency malware, which is kind of crazy. And then it also actually prevents Activity Monitor, which is macOS's version of Task Manager, from running. So you as the user can't really open it up and say, why is this process hogging 98% of my CPU or something. It actually uses a Mac app called Caffeinated, which is an app I used in college that prevents your computer from actually going to sleep. So it could just keep on mining, which is pretty cool. The interesting aspect here, like Ganesh talked about, is that it uses AppleScript, which is a scripting language that Apple developed a long time ago. It's not necessarily meant to develop anything on. You can't write program. I mean, you can write a program in the simple sense, but you're not building any sort of applications on AppleScript. It's meant as automation software. When you write it, it's kind of weird. You write things like tell calendar to look for event or something. It's very contrived, but it's meant for automation, for you to automate different tasks on your Mac computer. But of course, automation means users' hands are off. And that's good for malware authors. That's good for doing some shady stuff. So as a result, AppleScript has been used pretty extensively in Mac malware. One of the other things that makes AppleScript extra juicy, if you will, is you can compile it, which is a little strange because it's an interpreted language, but you can compile it in a run-only mode. So what that means is it actually compiles it and creates that executable for you, but it removes the source code. So when you take a look at just the executable, it makes it really hard to convert that or reverse engineer it back into a human readable format so you can understand the logic and step through the different things that malware is doing. So up until now, that has actually been a huge problem. So this OSAMiner malware, it was actually analyzed a couple years ago, but it didn't go anywhere. And this malware actually has been out in the wild since about 2015, according to SentinelOne. And the reason it didn't go anywhere initially was you couldn't really perform static analysis on it because there was no way to convert it from that executable or that compiled format back into a human readable format. So what you'd have to do as a security researcher looking at compiled AppleScript as run only is you'd have to rely on behavioral analysis. Basically just put it into a safe environment and detonate it and then just watch what it does and see what it touches and then try and guess at what its purpose is and whatnot. But the inner workings of it is still kind of a black box. So that's all kind of changed because a security researcher at SentinelOne has actually developed a decompiler for it. They're actually using an existing disassembler, which is a different word, that already exists by a GitHub user called Jinmo. It's on GitHub. SentinelOne has open sourced their decompiling script, which is called, I think it's AEVT or something, Apple Event Decompiler is what it's called. But essentially, those two things combined, the decompiler and the disassembler, you can now take that run-only mode compiled AppleScript and convert it into something that a human being can read. And then, of course, now you can see what's going on with it, which is cool. So that's actually going to change the game a little bit in terms of Mac malware, particularly cryptocurrency, because compiled AppleScript with run-only mode enabled is pretty common. You see it quite a bit. Now that maybe the name of the game is going to be changing a little bit, which is a bit of a win. So it puts a smile on my face.
Very interesting. Very interesting takeaway. One quick comment, Andy, because since it's a compiled version only, because there's no human readable code, right?
Right.
So I'm assuming the size of the malware executable would be much smaller, and even if it is there, it's not easily identifiable. Is it a fair statement to say? Because you're only getting the compiled version, right?
Yeah, I didn't read. I don't think the article. I don't think Bleeping Computers article actually goes into the size of the malware itself. But the logic is sound. I mean, if you're not including that source code, certainly. I mean, if it's compiled, it's going to be a lot smaller, much more lightweight. I will say that it comes in 4 different phases. There's 4 different kind of scripts that get pulled down. Majority of the time, they're stored in plist files or preference list files, which are ubiquitous on macOS. Most legitimate applications on macOS will have a plist, and basically when you open the application, it pulls from that plist just to understand what it needs to grab. And then one of them is actually, I think the last stage is stored as a PNG file. But to your comment, I'm pretty sure that the Sentinel-1 article will have the size component. I just didn't read it in the Bleeping Computer portion.
One more question. You said there are multiple components to this OSAMiner, right?
Correct.
So I'm assuming there's an executable, there is a dropper, and there's maybe a miner, that kind of stuff.
Yes, and just reading from the article here, there's a parent script that executes the actual Trojanized application. And one thing I didn't mention actually is it's typically spread via pirated copies of games and software. The 2 most popular ones that the article mentioned was League of Legends and Microsoft Office. So it starts there, and then there's an embedded script, and then there's a minor setup script, AppleScript basically, that'll go out and it'll pull down the actual Monero mining software.
And as Macs become more popular, we're going to see many more, different types of malware that are taking advantage of these different kind of like the way Macs operate, and using things that are becoming so common, like League of Legends or Microsoft Office. I could see this becoming pretty well spread out throughout the Mac community. And unfortunately, as more people do start getting into Mac OS and buying Mac devices, it just kind of makes the opportunity for these from the malware to be more effective, and to it produces like the factor of I'm going to start reaching a good amount of people, so it's worth my time to now make this malware and start spreading it on Macs. Whereas previously it probably didn't make sense because the population of Mac users was much smaller. But I think we're going to start seeing this change, and it's not only going to be the Windows malware that's going to be the popular malware. It's going to be starting to other platforms like Linux and Mac OS. I think that's for me is the takeaway of this, is that what was once thought of as not worth it is now worth it.
Yeah, the user base of Mac is growing, and so now it might be make a little financial sense, at least, to spend the development time from a business perspective. Here's my take a little bit. Here's a hot take for you guys. You can have the best operating system in the world that is just like, it's perfect, right? Which macOS is pretty great, but it's hard to defend against a user just clicking yes to everything, So like macOS is great. There's a lot of really good controls, and it's built on Unix, which is it's permissions based. It's good. It's very good. But if I go to a bad site on my Mac and I download something, and I say yes, open it, and then I go to my system preferences and I go to security settings. I go to general, and I say open anyway. And then Mac's like, hey, are you sure? Sure, because we don't know what this is. It doesn't have a cert. I don't know where you got this thing from. It's from the internet. It's definitely not from the Mac store, yada, yada. I could still be like, yeah, that's fine. Open it anyway. And now you've got malware on the system, and it's just like, man, it's just, there were so many different barriers to getting that malware in the system, and the user just punched right through them.
I made you jump through so many hoops, but this was so worth it for you that you went ahead and did it anyway.
You did it anyway, exactly. And you would never expect any company really, to say, hey, no, you can't go to that site. At all.
Right.
It's always going to be up to the user, and it just sort of goes back to the social engineering tactics. If you can just trick a person into clicking some things, then you're good. You're golden. You're good to go. And it's hard. It's just a hard game to play from a defensive perspective. But it's something that we have to do. You've got to keep playing it. You got to keep getting better at it. And I'm curious to see if Apple comes out and includes any sort of changes to AppleScript. I doubt it, only because AppleScript has already been abused for a good number of years at this point. I wouldn't expect them to come out and actually change something about AppleScript.
Right.
I think it's used legitimately. I'm not certain of it. I've only used AppleScript a handful of times in my life, and I've had Macs forever. And I haven't found use outside of just go tell these calendar events to get deleted and then open this file or something. Some contrived examples.